Hi, folks. Steve Urban here from the Riderflex Podcast. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by two companies I'm deeply involved with. First up, Reliance, your trusted partner for nationwide robot maintenance and repair, specializing in humanoid and autonomous robots for homes and businesses. Visit roboreliance.com to learn more. And for all your home maintenance needs, there's Cura Home Maintenance of Colorado. From air duct cleaning to dryer vent cleaning to gutter cleanouts and much more. Check them out at curahomeservices.com. And finally, don't forget about the two books we've published in the Riderflex Guide series. The first being the Riderflex Guide, Inspiring and Hiring. This one is targeted at all types of managers and supervisors, anybody that interviews and hires people. And the second one, the Riderflex Guide 2.0, Mastering Job Interviews, designated to help all levels of job candidates prepare for and ace the interview. And now for today's episode. Please subscribe and enjoy. Okay. Are you from Colorado?
I am. I grew up in Southwest Denver, and my parents made a move to Jefferson County, Littleton, when I was in 8th grade.
You're a native.
Yeah. I was born in Aurora.
Wow. I don't get to talk to very many natives. That's pretty rare.
Yeah. My biological father was a carpenter, and so he came out for a big boom in the early 80s, and that's why I was born here. So
where were your folks from originally?
My parents are from the Toledo, Ohio area. So that's where I spend a lot of my summers still.
Because you got family back there?
My grandmother was one of 13 children. And so all of those kids at least had 3. And we have these Beauregard outdoor bashes, and it's about 500 people. We wear name tags and everything. So.
Are you serious? That's cool. That's cool. You're like, oh yeah. Are you Johnny? You're Johnny's nephew?
Which one of the 13 did you come from? So yeah.
Wow. Who organizes that?
It's the eldest daughter of, Renee. I actually don't know how I'm related to her, but I know she's one of the 13. So one of my aunts, my second great aunt.
And organizing that's a chore right there. Holy
yeah. They do Christmas party, and then every 5 years a Beauregard outdoor bash. So yeah.
I see. Okay, very good. All right. So siblings, you got
Yes, I have 3 sisters, 2 step, 1 biological, and we're all 1 year apart from each other. So in high school, we were freshman, sophomore, junior, senior.
Dominated the high school.
Oh yeah.
So you had stepsisters. So your mom or dad, somebody was married before or something.
Both of my parents were married prior, and they both had 2 kids in their first marriage. And when they met, we were kind of like Brady Bunch, but all girls. My stepsisters went back and forth every other week. A really cool story about that is my mom's second husband. His name was Tom O'Byrne. He was a Denver police officer. He came to me when I was about 8 and asked me if he could adopt me. And I told him no. And so he came back 2 years later and, asked me like how the past 2 years been going. I love you and I want to make you mine. Can I adopt you? And when I was 10, I said yes. So they went through the process.
Wow. Now you said your mom's second husband, so he adopted you, but then what? Now they're not married?
He passed away when I was younger. At the age of 17, he had a heart attack while we were on vacation.
Bummer.
Yeah, it was. I've had a lot of trauma in my life. I actually went to Columbine High School when the shootings happened. And so we had a lot of death and stuff happen. And so my junior year in high school on Christmas or on spring break is when my father passed away. So I already had a little bit of how to mourn, how to get through really traumatic things up until that point. So
wow. That's tough. Did your mom ever remarry, or she was done after?
She did, yes. She's been remarried for about 20 years now to another Tom. So she likes Toms.
How about that? Well, good for her.
Yeah.
That's good.
He treats her like a queen. He's great.
Okay. Yeah. Are they nearby? Are they here?
Yes, they're in Littleton. So I'm lucky enough to have my parents help me out with my daughters. So.
And you got 2 girls, you said?
I do, 5 and 8. Yeah.
5 and 8 now, and you're married?
I am. Well, I think that's one of the things that comes along with my entrepreneurial story is I am going through divorce.
Going through. Oh my God. Speaking of trauma, Geez, I'm sorry to hear that. We're recording this, by the way, on.
That's okay. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that, as an entrepreneur, I owned a painting company with my ex-husband. And
Okay.
so that kind of dissolved and then have been rebuilding myself since then. I've opened up two businesses. One I decided I didn't want to do anymore, and that's what got me into fractional COO services. So,
I want to get into that, but first let
yeah.
me ask you. So, wow. All right. So how long? So the divorce is not final.
No, it's almost 2 years and counting.
Gee, is it messy?
It's not messy. It's just dealing with like
Stuff.
mental health issues, yeah, and like needing doctors and help and stuff like that. So it
I
delays the process when somebody's hospitalized.
I see. Okay. Interesting. My first wife, uh, has all kinds of problems. In fact, she should probably be in an institution somewhere. She's got all kinds of major
Yeah.
issues.
Well, my ex-husband is a combat veteran, and so then dealing with addiction issues by trying to solve the mental health stuff, like the combat stuff, just kind of
Yeah,
and layered it on. So
yeah, yeah. Divorce sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. It's and I always like it when somebody, not like it. I always think it's funny when I'll have a friend or something and be like, "Oh yeah, we get divorced, but it's gonna be fine. Yeah, we're super amicable. Everything's gonna go super smooth." And I'm always like, "Okay, bro. Yeah,
okay, wait, yeah, just
okay,
wait.
okay. Call me in a few months."
Yeah, it hasn't been too bad. It's just, waiting for health to arrive is probably the most difficult part.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
uh,
Okay, so yeah, you got some scars. You got some battle scars
yeah.
going on here from several things. Okay. Well, it's nice to have your parents close, huh? Or at least in the state.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so by the way, why'd you go to school? Why'd you go to school out in California? Any reason?
Well, my therapist that I went to through high school because of all the everyone went to therapy after the shootings happened.
Right, right.
She was actually one of the first females who graduated from Santa Clara University, and so it was her alma mater.
Oh,
I grew up Catholic, and so that was one of the requirements my parents really wanted to have from both of me and my sisters that we went to Catholic universities. So I chose the most liberal order of the Catholic Church, which is the Jesuits. And when I went to go visit the campus in February of my senior year, there was people who were sunbathing, and I was like, "This is my place. I'm coming here."
right, right. Yeah. Just so the listeners can let that sink in. Yeah, your February in Colorado is not the best month. In fact, it might be the worst month. And then
Yeah,
you go out to California, you're like, oh wow, okay, yeah,
yeah.
cool.
Palm trees and flowers everywhere. It's like, yes, this is it. So,
I got you. Okay, very good. All right, so talk to us about your career a little bit. Walk us through after college. Walk us through a little bit of your career, and then into the entrepreneurship.
okay. I think my first job after I got out of college was actually at Stanford University Libraries.
Okay.
And I worked in the periodicals section, like the intake. And part of the reason why I got that job is because while I was in school, I did a year in Sydney and I took Arabic while I was down there.
Oh,
And
cool.
so I helped check in all the Arabic materials. So that kind of gave me a leg up working at Stanford University. During the 08, 09 housing crash, Stanford went through a huge layoff and they basically said one person in every department is going to go. And I looked around and I was the youngest person there. I didn't have any family members. And so I volunteered because I felt like I couldn't imagine being a parent, losing my job in a huge housing crash.
Yeah.
I didn't think about, the hundreds of Ks of, student debt that I had. I just was worried about the human.
Uh,
Yeah. But hindsight is always 2020, right? I then did a couple of years of like retail and actually worked at a casino for a little bit.
okay.
That got raided by the FBI
While you were
and
there, were you there that day?
yeah,
You were
they
there
did.
that day? Oh, that's
Yeah, they
cool.
did three casinos at the same time, and they were trying to get a Chinese like prostitution, shark loan, drug ring, and they got everybody but the top two people. And so I'm sitting there in the casino with a zip tie going, "What have I done with my life?"
Oh, because they actually had to put.
Everybody had to be, yeah.
Wow,
So
that's
I
like
called my,
something out of a movie. Did they come in with like guns drawn and stuff?
yeah, like it was full on FBI raid. So
Cool.
the next day I called my mom and I said, okay, mom, can you come get me? She did.
That is so funny.
So then
Wow.
when I came back, for someone from her church was the security head at the Denver Art Museum, and I started working there as a
Okay.
security guard.
Okay.
And that got me I worked with the Department of Education, and I was an admin assistant for the student dropout prevention and engagement unit. And
Okay.
so at the state level,
I bet there's some stories in there.
yeah, I mean, it was really great seeing all the different services that are provided to Colorado students when you feel like there's just nothing out there. Like I just got a really intimate knowledge of like what are all the safety nets that can be there for students who are struggling with all these different kinds of issues.
Okay.
Um, and then the next,
Right about here, are you still like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do with my life? Like, what is my, like, what is it? Where am I going with all of this?
where am I going? I think when I was in that job, I was doing the security job still. And then I went through bankruptcy because I had so much student loan debt. I
Uh,
thought if I declared bankruptcy, I would get rid of it. But student loan debt doesn't do bankruptcy. So
were you
that
married?
was really,
Were
yeah.
you married?
No, no, not at that time.
Single.
No.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
And then after that job, I worked for the National Veterans Training Institute, and I was admin and a travel coordinator. We helped veterans find jobs once they became civilians, and we trained the people who helped those veterans get those jobs.
Cool. I
I
mean,
did that.
all right. All
Go
right.
ahead.
Yeah. Everything you're touching so far is somewhat mission driven with a purpose that helps people besides just making money, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah. And so I did that for 5 years. And the University of Denver at Colorado, or University of Colorado at Denver, they lost their funding from the government, and it got awarded somewhere else. So then went into the medical field, and I worked with Centura and was a project coordinator for a coding accuracy unit where I helped manage 75 clinics with 300 physicians. And basically in that job is I told doctors that they were doing it wrong all the time, and they don't like that. So yeah,
Yeah,
I got it.
doctors and lawyers are big egos. You got some big egos right there. Doctors
Yeah.
and lawyers, most of the time.
Yeah. So I got used to having hard conversations, and I got a taste of what it meant to manage, more people over a bigger area,
Okay.
as well as with project management. I did like an accidental project manager course during all of that, and I learned about systems.
Okay. So you're
Um,
developing now you're really developing into an ops person here. Now you're starting to kind of get in your lane
yes.
as an operational leader. Okay, go ahead.
So then I went through my third layoff at that point. The powers that be up at the top of Centura switched, and the entire department was nixed. And so at that point, thinking, okay, Stanford, National Veteran Training Institute, now Centura, like, what am I going to do?
What am I doing?
My
Still
husband
not.
had,
Okay, you were married now. Now you're
yes,
married.
I'm married now. Yeah.
Right.
I got married the last year that I was at the Veterans Institute.
Okay.
Um, and I figured I was like, well, I'm awesome at admin stuff. So I'm just gonna admin my husband's business like nobody's business.
Okay, now let me take a pause for a minute.
Yeah.
You said you helped veterans or something in one of those jobs. That's how you met your husband.
It's not, it was just a coincidence. I
Oh,
actually met him at the Denver Art Museum.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, all right, all right.
It
All
was
right,
his
so
first civilian job. So
okay. All
yeah.
right. So when you had that last layoff, your husband was already doing something. He had a company or he was working.
He was working, he was doing security at Centura. He was a security department head at Porter Hospital,
Okay.
and he just loved Centura. So I was like, well, I'll look into the Centura network as well. And that's how I found Fullwell. And
I see.
that's how I found that job. Yeah.
But anyway, after that last layoff, you said you'll go help your husband with his painting
Yes.
company.
So he started a painting company on the weekends, and it kind of got more and more serious.
Mm.
Um, and so, admin, I don't know, have you ever read the book E-Myth by
Nope.
Michael Gerber? So Michael Gerber there's three different types of people. There's technicians, there's managers, and there's entrepreneurs. And a lot of times technicians get sick of being told what to do all the time. So they become their own boss by opening a business. And that's basically was the story of my ex-husband. He was a
Okay.
painter. He didn't like answering anybody, so he wanted to create his own business.
Okay.
But there's the business part of businesses that a lot of entrepreneurs forget about. They think if they
Yeah.
just know the technician part that they'll be successful.
Yeah.
Um, so that's where I came in. I legitimized it, got all the paperwork together,
Okay.
started doing HR, started putting systems in. And for the 5 years we were together, we doubled every year
That's
by
great.
putting in better systems and hiring people and making sure that anything that we touched was better when we left it, including our employees. So that was one of the big things.
So you were COO, CFO, Chief Human Resource Officer, Chief
CMO, yeah.
Chief Marketing Officer. Yeah, okay, I got it. Yeah,
Yeah, the business owner of a small business wears many hats, right?
yeah.
So that
Okay,
was really big, and just trying to make a name for our company. It was started out as Tim's Painting and Drywall, and then we named it Ripcord Painting in homage to his unit's call sign when he
okay.
was in the Army. He was a paratrooper, so
I see.
why it's called Ripcord because they dropped out of airplanes.
I
So
got you. Okay. All right. Well, and then of course all kinds of lessons learned. Once you own a business and you grow a business, I mean, there's just so many things, right? Then you learn, you're like, wow, okay, it's just totally different than being an employee. Completely different world.
it is. And I actually had someone this morning ask me, what would I rather be a small business owner or an employee? I was like, small business owner, I think it'd be so hard for me to be an employee. That sounds like a death by 1,000 spoons. And he's like, spoons? I'm like, yes, it would be worse than knives.
Uh, it's
But
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we can
some
get it.
people are built like that and some
Some,
people aren't. I'm just not built like that. And I've always had when I worked for the National Veterans Training Institute, because we help so many veterans in different ways, we had to take all of the aptitude and personality tests.
oh, yeah,
And so I had a very keen awareness of like where my strengths and weaknesses were.
yeah.
And I was always put into very supportive roles instead of leadership roles. And I really desired that my input be taken seriously. And every once in a while I would have, but I'd be like, that's not really efficient. Or every job I ever went to, I rewrote to the training program. Because I'd be like, they're saying 20 steps, I can do this in 12. I'm just going to rewrite this standard operating procedure and now this is the new way of doing it.
Really turning into an ops leader at this point now, and an entrepreneur. Okay, then what happened? Then crisis with the divorce, lose the business. What happens?
At that point, that was the end of 2023, like September 2023. I love the painting industry. I would have not been able to do what I did with the painting industry without the community that I connected myself to. I
Okay,
believe you can't do anything without community. And so I tried to find my painting community. I tried to find my women business owners community. I tried to find my women painting business owners community. And I didn't want to go into the winter with the painting business because that's the slow season for painting.
okay,
So what's an industry that has the same skill set, opposite seasons? And I did Christmas lights for a year.
okay. Yeah,
And that was, and I've, taught Scott a little bit of the fundamentals with
yeah, yeah. Thank you for doing
and
that.
yeah, and just learning, like I went to a certification course. Yes, those exist for Christmas lights. And just learned what it meant to be in the industry. I found my Christmas light industry partners and community and did that for a season and realized what I loved most about my painting business was not the logistics, but in better operations, better systems, how to make the client experience the best that it can be, and not like you go here, here's the supplies, let me send out the invoice. Like
I
that's not
see.
the part of the business that I enjoyed. So
Okay,
yeah, and so I was at a networking event actually for DMAR, the Denver Metro Association of Realtors, and the lovely person, Dustin Pitney, he owns Sky Manor Roofing. He introduced me to Rob Peterson, who owns Paint Denver,
okay,
and basically joined us together because Rob is a people person and I'm a systems person.
great.
And Rob said, could I pay you to do the systems in my business? And I was like, shut up. People get paid to do that. I was like, sign me up.
You're like,
And that,
yes, yes,
yeah, that took
yes.
me down the path of what is an operations person? What is a fractional COO? And like, how do you provide those services? And then I learned more about contracting, and I'm learning more about mergers and acquisitions now,
Oh,
and like how
okay.
to do those things for like higher level, executive level stuff. So that's how I got into being a fractional COO. But that
Okay,
was
great. So right now you are a fractional COO for Paint Denver, but you're an independent contractor. You're not an employee.
correct. Yes. I
I
have
got
other clients too.
you have other clients.
Usually
Okay.
I start with a small project, about 4 months, kind of dating, like, hey, is this really going to work? Do you listen to me? Do I listen to you? Are we going to actually do things? And then I'll extend the contract based on the needs, or sometimes it's just a little project and that's all they need me for. So
And you're running this under KBCO Enterprises.
correct. Yes.
All
Yeah.
right. Do you have a
Which
website?
I
You got
do. I'm really bad. I'm a cobbler's children who have no shoes. So I don't know what the website looks like.
how do people, or what's the best way for people to find you and get a hold of you for your services?
Through LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIn person. So yeah,
Okay.
word
All
of
right.
mouth is a lot of what I do. Yeah,
Okay. All
that's
right. Well, and how many clients you got right now?
I have four. Yeah. And
How many?
that's keeps me plenty busy.
Yeah, because if you got one, yeah, if four, yeah, that's probably. I mean, if you had two or three more, you'd probably have to get some help, wouldn't you? Probably.
I do have help. I have virtual assistants.
Okay.
So one of the services I help people find is virtual assistants,
Okay.
because that's one of the things, because I do a lot of AI stuff. I can't really get people ready for AI unless they're already practiced in releasing or delegating information or work to other people.
Mm,
And so that's usually my first step, is like, okay, let's get you a virtual assistant, someone who's working in the Philippines, and say, hey, I need you to delegate your work to them, or parts of your work to them, so you can get used to something not being 100% the way you like it,
hmm.
but gets the job done.
Okay.
And so that's it's a phasing of how I get someone ready for AI implementation. So.
So you're fractional COO, fractional Chief AI Officer. What? How? Talk to me about your services and kind of your where you focus.
Well, a fractional COO, basically my little 30-second elevator speech is
Yeah,
that
go
I
for it.
integrate and implement systems, processes, automations, and AI into your business to increase efficiencies and revenue. And so basically what I do is I make sure that I have systems and processes in place to assess where can I utilize the Pareto principle to increase revenue and efficiencies in your business. So that's
Okay.
and then
Okay.
just knowing that I have one of the greatest assets that I have is the people that are in my back pocket. So even if I don't know how to do it, I can get you to the right person, because I'd rather your business run more successfully, even if it doesn't mean you're utilizing me as the chief service.
Okay. Are you charged by the hour? Do you charge by the contract? Is it a flat rate monthly, or does it a little depends?
Depends on the circumstance. I prefer retainers because I am results driven, not I don't ex one of the things that I really try to help people understand is that I exchange my expertise, not my time.
Okay.
Because I can't exchange my time, because there's so much more that came into that hour of me being able to delegate or assign or evaluate things, that years of experience tapped into that 1 hour. So
Month
yeah.
to month?
Yes. Well,
Month
it
to month.
depends on contract length.
Depending on and they need to keep the retainer full for you to keep working. When the retainer gets empty, they need to refill it.
Yeah.
That's good practice, by the way. It's better than chasing cash. We could do a whole segment on chasing down invoices, which is a pain in the ass for consultants. Um,
Well, mine is a prepay month. So you pay me the end of this month, I'll work in March.
that's, I mean, I'm just, hey, listen, for anybody listening to this episode, if you can get to work in that fashion, go for, I mean, that's how you should do it.
Yeah.
If not, you're working for 30 days, then you send the invoice, then it's another 30 days before they pay it. And even then you got to call them and say, hey man, where's that? Oh, yeah, that was, let me check with Sally. And then it's another 15 days on this crap.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those are some of the lessons I learned by running a painting and Christmas light company, right? Like what the terms are for the person who writes it, right? And making sure that
Yeah.
whenever you create a contract that it works best for you, but for both parties, but making sure you get your stuff covered. So, yeah.
Now, what if Nike called or somebody huge to get a big client on your portfolio and they said, well, we really don't want to pay up front. We'll pay you after. Would you bend the rules?
Probably not. I've
No,
learned that the ones that ask you to bend the rules are usually the hardest clients to deal with.
is it so true? You know,
Unless, oh, go ahead.
I just put a funny video post out on LinkedIn last week where this customer's giving this guy behind the counter a hard time, and the clerk just slaps him and like knocks him down on the floor. It was kind of a funny, like a comedy spoof. And I my whole point was as a consultant or as a professional service provider, you usually know early on, like, okay, this is going to be a pain in the ass client. I just know by the way these first set of questions are going.
And if you're okay with that, we do PETA tax in my in my past. If we have a feeling you're going to be, high, kid gloves or something
Yeah,
like that, you know,
I just
we try to price ourselves out of it, and then people are like, okay, we're like, oh man, oh well, at least we made sure we've got ourselves paid well.
I either do that or I just don't, I won't chase them. Like I'm not,
Yeah.
if I've talked to them two or three times and they're just like, well, yeah, but have you ever, recruited a rocket scientist and then it's like, whatever. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not.
Yeah. Like we're not good. It's okay to say you're not a good fit. Some people can get upset with that, but the headaches that you avoid down the road
Totally.
it's worth it having that hard conversation.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, I want to talk about well, first of all, I'm an old operations executive.
Mhm.
So before we started Riderflex, I was a COO most of my after I made C-suite, I was a COO longer than anything else.
Yeah.
And I ran a couple of $40 million companies as a C-suite executive. So we could talk about, my point is we could talk about the operation stuff for forever because I'm sure we could.
Oh, I could. Don't get me started over a drink because I won't shut up for the whole night.
You said it earlier. Are they going to listen? The biggest problem, well, there's so many, write a novel about it, but you come in as an operations consultant, you're trying to help them be more efficient. But when I'm stealing your thunder. I know you probably say the same thing. When you're dealing with a original founder or family that started it and it's a small to mid-sized company, they've decided as a founder or whatever, like I think we need help. Let's bring in some outside help, and because they've said the words "I want help," and then you get in there and you're like, "Hey, man, yeah, here's everything you need to do differently," and they're like, "Well, yeah, but we've always done it that way," and la 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 la. Right? I mean, is that
There's two different. So one of the things is that I've learned is how am I vetting my possible future clients.
yes?
The other one that I think is really big that when I've talked to other my fractional COO community, right? My fractional community, is when you're vetting somebody, you have to ask them what solutions have you already tried to implement that haven't worked.
That's a good one.
And that way you're not starting at ground zero again, you're starting at level 100.
Yeah,
And when you know that they've actually tried other things, you're at a place where they understand you're not a panacea, right? You are just getting them one step closer to where they want to go. And that's a client that I want to work with who says, you're going to get me closer. You're not going to be the end all be all,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Right, right. I'm not going to make it perfect. I'm going to help you improve.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and then of course sometimes even though you've vetted them fully, you don't know until you get in the building that they actually aren't going to listen or do anything, right?
Very true. Yes. And that's something where that's like where I do the shorter contract in the first time to see
Yep.
like how do we work together. And a lot of times I found even just being in a world of business owners and a community of business owners is we are our own worst enemies, like
True.
you could just fire yourself from all the jobs that you're doing and put somebody there that's already a rock star at it, a lot of your headaches would be gone. So
Yeah. I,
yeah,
I
it's not just my experience as a fractional CEO, just being in the communities that I've been in.
I have found that the ones that are the toughest to take through change are the ones that have been making money, have made money for a long time,
Doing it the way they do it.
doing it the way they're doing it. Yeah, and they have money in the bank, and they got $1 million in the bank. They're kicking off another 250 grand a year to their family, and they're like, I'm kind of good, you know, and so they try to. Those are the ones that are usually more resistant. Now, you know, if you send into a crisis situation where the house is on fire and the bank's ready to call the note, they're usually a lot more receptive to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but humans don't like change, and that's a big part of. And then, by the way, even if your client, right, even if your client says they want change, then you got to deal with the employees, and they all hate change.
Yes. I think for me, when it came to when it comes basically being a COO is change management a lot of times more than anything else. And
Yeah.
this like implementing the systems and processes that allow that change to occur more, faster is kind of the secret sauce. But getting people, I think a lot of it's the culture. Like if you're the culture of saying we want to be better, then if those people say, okay, we want to be better, well, what does that look like? You know, one of the things that I really like sticking behind is the traction method by Gino Wickman.
Mhm.
And
It's
I
all
think once,
it's all the rave right now.
yeah,
We'll see what the book of the year is next year, but right now it's the book.
traction, yeah. Well, there's 8 books, not
Yeah,
just one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry.
But yeah, but it's when everybody starts pulling the ship in the same direction and knowing what their part is in that has been really helpful in the places that I've helped other people with. So.
Yeah. Are you only doing painting companies or what do you got?
I've helped an electrical company, porting a roofing company. I've done HVAC and plumbing. So,
Okay. So a lot of skilled trade stuff,
mhm.
which is kind
Yeah,
of
my
the
focus is the trades. There's a little bit more digital divide and systems divide between
mm,
them
mm,
and other
mm,
industries.
mm, mm,
So,
mm. Yeah. Now, speaking of old timers that don't like change, the skilled trade guys that I mean, oh my gosh, yeah, these are some hardcore. Most of them are like, Kaylan, you're not an HVAC person. We've been doing it this way for 25 years, and you're like, yeah, I know, but if you'll just do this, you can save another $30,000 a year.
I think for them, when it comes to change, like then, like if it's something like that, then I'd be like, you're right. I don't know. I was like, do you know how much do you know about systems? Which do like you bring your expertise and I'll bring mine and we'll see how we can make this work.
Right, right.
And
There you go. There you
yeah, and
go.
then I just choose a really low hanging fruit to show them like what
Oh,
one new
good,
system can do.
good one.
And a lot of times when it comes to trades, it's getting an online scheduling system. And usually you'll get a 20 to 30% uptick if you just have an online scheduling system. And
Instead of their spouse answering the phone and like,
that's one change. And I just doing that, they're like, whoa, like I didn't, and I'm like, that's such a low hanging fruit. Like let's look at your estimating software. Let's look at, what is your SOP for your client journey? How can we make that more automated? So there's a lot of different things where it's looking at where's the biggest problem in their business and what's the easiest thing that we can fix right away.
mm. Let's talk about AI piece. I mean, hey, look, every company I've ever been involved with, whether I've as an employee or as a consultant, everybody needs operational efficiencies. I mean, there are no perfect companies that you can always improve somewhere. So I'm a big fan and a big believer that operational consultants are highly valuable if a company's open-minded enough to use them. But now you have this other sword that you're driving revenue with, which is the AI stuff, which is another huge area, right? Let's talk about what you're providing there, and kind of how you got into it.
Well, how I got into AI was when it became the OpenAI ChatGPT became open source on November 11th, 2022. I did not sleep for about 3 days. I my husband at the time was like, you need to go to bed. And I probably got 4 hours of sleep those nights because I was just so fascinated with asking it to do weird things like give me a Dr. Seuss poem about Don Quixote in French. Like just give me the weirdest things that it could execute. And then I got into business stuff and it was like that was game over for me. So it just kind of came from like a something I was doing for fun on the side and then realizing that I could use it for other purposes. One of my mentors, Megan Morgan Knox, she does AI in the trades as well, and she kind of took me under her wing, and I learned a little bit more that way.
Okay.
I then got introduced to Perry Belcher. He used to be on Shark Tank, and
Okay.
he's a marketer, but he got into AI bots, and I went to an AI bot summit in April of last year. And then I went to another one in January of this year. So I'm trying to stay in this, in the
Yeah.
industry and learning about a bunch of things. I like going to events because I'm completely surrounded by people who are using AI in their everyday business.
Yeah.
This last summit that I went to was absolutely fantastic because they did a section on being a fractional COO. And it was the first time in, the 2 years I've been working up to being a fractional CEO that I did not have to explain what I did to everybody in the room for the rest of the summit. It was great. Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
that,
So that's how I got into it.
and then you thought to yourself, wow, not a lot of other business folks are into this. I bet I could help them.
Yeah, I think for me, it's more of demystifying AI to people and showing them the lot, like basically demystifying is just showing them what does it actually do and how does it do it.
Yeah,
And then it's not like this crazy magic stuff that happens. And a lot of times people don't realize you've been using AI for decades.
I know, right?
And it's just the way when it became open source, it just accelerated how quickly things are evolving. Um, yeah, just like the '01 to '03 version in ChatGPT, the IQ level went way up.
Mm-hmm.
DeepSeek just totally killed NVIDIA's stock because it used a lower version of NVIDIA to
Yeah,
create a
yeah,
superior product.
yeah.
And so it's just like I try to go to an event every 3 months and it feels like it's not enough, right? Because it's just moving so fast. So this time last year, people thought that AI would replace everything within 5 years. By October of last year, that had gotten down to 2.5 years. By January of this year, they're like 18 months. So it's just kind of like,
I
I don't know
know.
if it's been that fast, but the evolution of it is just quite fascinating.
Let's talk about that. I'm sure you're like me. I don't go to I don't go to a bunch of conferences and stuff because I'm 57 years old and I did so much of it that I can't do it anymore. But I mean, I can, but it's not my favorite.
I mean, it's grueling. It's like 6 a.m. to 2 a.m.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And then
yeah.
then you got to go to dinner and then you got to drinks and you shake hands, kiss babies. And it's like, oh,
Yes. Yeah.
dang. I spent so many years doing that. But what I am doing constantly is, I mean, every AI person, podcast, interview, books, you name it. I'm just constantly all the time, all over it,
Well, if you're
Courses.
not aggressively going after it, you're not going to be in a good spot in 2 years. Like it's not just, okay, let's play with ChatGPT right now. No, do you know how many subscriptions I have to like AI platforms? It's getting a little ridiculous at this point.
By the way, that's a challenge. Some people ask me, they're like, "Hey, what should you do?" And I said, "Well, you want to be versed on what's available, but you do want to kind of pick one and ride that pony so that you're good at it because you can get too diluted, in my opinion, anyway.
Oh, you can. Yes. Yeah.
I think that's a challenge. But let's talk about. I want to talk about the future, right? There's so much chatter right now about the future of the workforce and how it's transforming things. And you got the doomsdayers over here, like, oh my God, all jobs eliminated, and oh by the way, Terminator's coming to kill everybody. And then you got the other end over here that's like, AI, that's just a passing fad and no big deal, and it's not going to affect anything. I love to, when I talk to people, I'm like, wow, this is all
Which
over the
part of the
place.
spectrum are you on, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's fascinating to talk to people and see where they're at. Um, and it's also fascinating to see how people what they're implementing, what they're scared to implement, get their opinions on stuff. Um, Interesting speech. And by the way, I'm not trying to make this political. This is
Fine.
not a Democrat
Oh, I know.
Republican
I've already
thing.
been asked about Trump's speech
Well,
on
Trump and Sam Altman's little thing about
Yes,
Stargate, and then JD Vance did a little speech at the French
he
deal
did.
yesterday
Yeah.
about
Yep.
AI. And for anybody that didn't listen to Vance's speech, I thought it was almost kind of like he was like, everything's going to be okay, everybody. That's what it felt like to me. He was like, it's going to be okay. It's going to drive jobs and we're going to make it all okay. And I'm like, well, okay. I hope yeah, okay. Sounds good. I don't know. Well, so that kind of leads me into the question, which is, what do you like? Where's all this going, Kaylan? I mean, where's this going?
I'm not a, Notre Dameist or anything, but I feel like people get scared because there are nefarious ways that AI can be used. Any advancement in technology has had nefarious uses,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
One of the things that someone told me, I don't know, I can't remember where I got this, but we have been as a society programmed to be scared of advancements in technology.
Hmm?
Watching Terminator,
Yeah.
Demolition Man,
Yep.
like all of our future seeking things all have doomsday
That's true.
endings,
Yeah.
right? So there is a fear that's inherently been ingrained in us as a society when it comes to technology investments.
Good point.
But one of the things that from my copywriting community, which people feel like copywriting is completely killed by AI,
It
right?
kind of is.
Is I completely disagree with that because
Oh,
you cannot ask AI, close your eyes and think about a time in your childhood that brings a smile to your face. And I want you to think about how does that make you feel? What do you feel the sunshine on your face? Are you at a lake? Are you at a AI cannot do that like humans can.
okay.
Another great example would be what AI can do and what it can't do. And I haven't actually tried this out with O3 yet. But before, if I asked it to give me a story about a parent feeding a crying child in the middle of the night, it would just be very logistical. The parent heard the child wake up in the middle of the night. They walked to the baby, they picked him up, they soothed him. That didn't work. They fed him a bottle, then they rocked him to sleep and they put the baby back down. A human copywriter is going to come in and go, hear the baby cry, and then the parent goes, "Oh my God, this is the 12th time tonight. Am I ever gonna get any sleep?" And then, you're gonna go to the baby, we're gonna coo them back to sleep, but it's not working. So against popular advice or scientific advice, I'm actually gonna close co-sleep with this little guy because I am so tired, I don't care anymore. Like AI wouldn't have those nuances in it.
Mm,
But a human who's experienced being a parent, so tired and like sleep deprived, who would make those decisions, right?
mm,
And so that's actually what is amazing about AI is humans can be more human so that AI can take over the mundane things that is just routine or just mundane. Like I don't want to have to write the same thing out or put data in the same way four different times or I can spend that energy doing human to human contact. And that's what I think is going to be the future is we're going to have a spectrum of how do you want to be served? You want human to human contact? Here's the price. You want fast and easy AI contact? Here's the price. And it's going to be how much human interaction do you want? And I think that that's what's actually going to be important in the future. And it's not
what
that AI is
happens?
going to go ahead.
What happens to all those mundane repeat jobs, those repeat tasks? What happens to all those workers right now that have to do all that?
I think for me, people who are doing those things will be replaced by people who do those things with AI. And if you don't learn how to navigate or instruct AI in robotics, like I think someone who's really smart about being futuristic is learning how to talk to robots. You can start out with really small ones and learning how to program it and telling it what to do. But if you use AI in your job and figure out how it can do those things so that you can do 10 tasks instead of one, right? Then you're able to free yourself up to level up in your skill set in something else instead of doing those things. So it's kind of like a progression of, okay, I don't have to do these repetitive tasks anymore. What can I put my energy towards that brings different or more value to what I'm already doing or what I want to do for my company?
That sounds good. I'm just thinking about all the tasks that I already have ChatGPT or Operator. I pay the $200 a month fee, by the
Oh,
way, for Operator.
yes, great. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm using I got GPTs and Operator built to do a lot of shit that I used to have people do.
Yeah. I
Why?
just think that's the natural evolution of things, right? So whenever we had like the Industrial Revolution, when we did agriculture, those were huge leaps in technology for ourselves as humans, and we found other things to do with our time.
What are we going to find? What are human beings going to do? I guess that's the question, huh?
That is the question. I mean, I think. Oh, that's what I would just love to know. Because even in 1950, no one would even thought where we are today, right?
Agreed.
Like there's jobs that don't even exist anymore that were done in 1950. And that was only
Most.
75 years ago, like most jobs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, they say it's going to ruin a lot of jobs. I think it's going to also create a lot of opportunity. And it's just about basically like what wave are you riding with what surfboard?
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, it is. There's so many comparisons to where you could say, yeah, in 1940, I mean, there was no such thing as a software engineer or a social media influencer or social media whatever, I mean, there's so many jobs. Um, so my personal thought is I tend to agree that I do think new jobs will be created that we can't even think of right now. Like we have no idea what they even are, so I kind of agree with that. Like we just have no idea what they're going to be.
yeah, I can't even fathom what
You
it is
can't even
because,
think of it.
yeah.
So I do think there'll be jobs created. My worry is the drag time,
Yeah, the gap.
the
Yeah.
gap, right?
Hmm.
I'm worried about the gap. And because of the speed of the change,
Mm.
I think is going to create this gap where it's like okay, all these jobs just got eliminated. And yeah, we're probably going to create new ones, but they're not created yet. And
Yeah.
so there's this,
I mean, as an operations officer, right? Like that job is like you can go to ChatGPT and get all the recommendations that I'm going to give you, right?
that's right.
And so if somebody wants to utilize that source, definitely. I think when it comes to doing anything, it's showing the complexity of things. And do you want somebody to walk you through that, or do you want to walk it through yourself?
Yeah.
Creating agents. Agents, you can create agents to walk you through those things, but you have to create the agents first, right? You can't just have
For now we do.
for now. Well,
Pretty soon,
actually, I have a no code agent agent builder now, so which
yeah.
makes it so much easier, right? But the thing is that when it comes to what that gap is going to be, it's educating yourself so that that gap is shorter for you than it is for everybody else. And if you're not playing with AI, then there's nowhere for you to go to those imaginary new things that we can't even fathom, right?
That's it. That's probably the best piece of advice for our episode here so far is protect your, we'll title it, me and you, we're gonna coin a phrase here. Protect yourself from the gap.
Yeah, yeah.
Learn how to pivot and protect yourself from the gap because I think there's going to be a drag or a gap or whatever we want to call it. Let's come up with a better name. But I think there's going to be this messy transitional period that if you're not careful, you can get left behind, and then you're going to be sitting there waiting for universal basic income, and it ain't going to be out yet, and you're going to be screwed. uh, so yeah, it's a fascinating time. Isn't it just can you even believe like sometimes it's not even real. I wake up every day, I'm like, I can't even, you said it earlier, I can't even keep up with the new shit coming out. Like, I'm like, really? Because I'm sure you're like me, you follow a bunch of different people, right? And almost,
Yeah, the different emails that I read every day and
it's
all
like,
the podcasts and
I'm like, it's moving at light speed.
it
I
is.
mean, light speed. I don't know. Yeah, so you do think we'll create you have the utopia mindset where new jobs are going to be created and everything's going to be fine. That's where you're leaning.
Things will be fine, but I do believe that it'll be for better good than not.
Okay.
Like it'll be more towards the positive than the negative, but that doesn't mean negative won't happen along the way.
Let's talk about possible negative. Have you listened to Jeffrey Hinton's recent interview with the BBC? Uh, Jeffrey he's the Nobel Peace Prize guy, right?
Yeah.
He was just on the BBC, I think, being interviewed, and man, he's just like Terminator's coming, basically, is what he's saying. I
Yeah.
mean, and he's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah, I think part of that comes from one of the things that we're going to have to learn as a society, and people are getting better at it because AI has been used for over 2 years now,
Yeah.
is differentiating between human and AI. And if we're not using it, then we don't have the discernment to be able to decide whether or not
Mm,
this is human or AI. And
yeah.
so the scary part comes when it's completely mimicking human behavior and we don't know it or understand it yet. And I think that's the scary part,
Okay,
right?
agreed. Let's pause right there. Let's take a deep breath right there. You're right. That when that happens on a regular basis,
Mhm.
combined with when figure AI's robots can make new robots themselves without humans having to be involved.
I mean, Tesla has a whole plant of robots making
Yeah,
robots.
then it's like,
Oh.
okay, yeah, that's when you're like, okay, well, I'm getting a little nervous.
Well, I mean, the singularity still is out there. There's no there's no self-actualization for AI at this point,
Right.
that we know of.
That we know of. Crazy
It's like
time. Well,
Simone, right? Have you ever seen that movie Simone?
yep,
Yeah, that's kind of what I think. We're like, we have elevated above human, and we want to go off on our own universe.
very possible. What was the one where she breaks out of the basement and he's got her behind the glass wall and she breaks out of there, kills him, and then goes off and into the regular world. I'm trying to remember. Anyway,
Is
um,
that a TV show or a movie?
no, it was
Like,
a movie. I'm trying to remember that one. She was a robot, or she was like a humanoid robot, and she got so smart she figured out how to get out of there.
oh,
Uh,
I don't remember
Trying
that
to
one.
remember. Anyway, well, let's wrap up with this question. And we could talk about me and you. We could do like a 4 hour episode.
Probably, yeah.
Uh, I like to have this debate. Well, actually, two questions. We got time for two questions.
Okay.
You have little kids in school.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've had this interesting debate with parents because this is a fun one to have. Do you let them use ChatGPT for homework?
My 3-year-old, if I don't know an answer, says, "Did you ask AI, mom?" When she was 3, 2 years ago, she is already starting to say that. She doesn't like my answer. Did you check AI, mom? So I think it's actually good for kids to use it because I want them to be able to know when it is being used and when it's not. I want them to have the knowledge
Okay.
to learn when to trust something and when to not. I think teachers are probably they're worried about it like plagiarizing stuff. I
Mhm.
would specifically say, hey, I want you to have AI write a paper about this. You need to fact check it and you need to tell me how you know it's AI written instead of human written and get them to get discerning eyes on them for content creation
Okay.
or persuasive writing. Like,
Okay.
how does human persuasive writing differ from AI's persuasive writing? So yeah, like for me, I think it's a non-negotiable. Like my children need to know how to use these tools because it's going to be the new language going forward.
If your daughter had a paper to write, 2 page
Mhm,
essay,
mhm.
and she had the idea for she's talking to I'm sure you use ChatGPT on your phone.
Oh yeah, I'm horrible at typing now because I dictate everything.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Let's say you hear her on the couch and she's like, "Hey, I got this idea for a paper. I want to do a paper about a purple squirrel. And here's my thoughts." And she's talking it out. She's back and forth with me. I call it my ChatGPT Mary. She's back and forth with Mary and they're having this conversation. She's like, "Yeah, but change this one paragraph. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. But really, no, I want it to be more funny. Add some funny." Let's say she's dictating back and forth, and then the paper finishes up.
Yes,
Is that okay for her to turn in?
I believe so.
Okay, I totally agree.
Yeah.
There are some parents that are just like, oh, no, they have to like write that out themselves, and I'm like, okay, really? This is what I do.
But they're doing the editing in their head.
That's
Like it
right.
doesn't have to be
That's
written
right.
out. They're
That's right.
doing the adjustments. They're doing
And it's their creativity. It's their
creativity.
creativity.
Yes. And I would actually look at the conversation that she's having with her, and I'd want to make sure that she's using please and thank yous. I'd want to make sure that she's interacting with it in a respectful way. If it's just like, no, I don't like that, like, hey, actually, can we change this paragraph? I would want to make sure that she's
Good.
communicating in the best way. So there's other things that I can utilize that for than just that paper coming out. Like, what are the other purposes that I can teach her saying, hey, you don't really communicate with people that way. It starts with practicing with technology, but you need to practice with technology how you want to speak to people. So there's a lot of different lessons that you can have with them using AI that more than just what the output the AI gives you.
Great
So,
stuff. That might be the highlight clip. I do this, and that's exactly what I do. I mean, I'll be walking around the block and I'll be like, "Hey, I need to send a memo to Johnny. He blah blah blah," and then I'll like talk it through, and I'll be like, "Yeah, read it back to me." And I'll listen to it. But yeah, okay, change this. Then I get back to my desk from walking around the block. It's there. Boom. I send it.
yep.
Like, I think that's totally fine. Some parents totally disagree with me on that. They're like, "Oh my God, I would never that."
Well, I can understand the disagreement because people are worried about decision atrophy or creation atrophy,
Okay,
right?
okay,
So there's a way, there can be an overdependence on it, right? Like for me, I spoke to a magazine publisher and he
okay.
was like, I would be so scared that I couldn't be as creative with it. And I said, okay, well, what if I sent you over like a devil's advocate futuristic wizard? And I said, just play with that chat GPT and see what comes out of it, right? And he was like, this was so much fun to play with. And I was like, did it give you ideas you would have never thought of if you had 10,000 hours to think of it? And he's like, absolutely. I was like, but your creativity, I was like, you don't use it all the time. Like you still have great creativity, but it is fun to just play with it sometimes. It doesn't always have to be work, like play
That's
with
true.
it.
That's true. Man, I use it for everything. You kidding me? If I'm going to a meeting, if I'm doing a 30-minute drive to a meeting, I'll just be like, "Hey, I'm going to meet Johnny, ABC company. Let's talk about it."
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And I do it for all kinds of stuff. Okay, and then the last question. I know we're out of time. What this whole thing about I back to the possible job loss, which you're probably right. It'll probably be fine. But let's just pretend for a minute
Yeah.
that it does eliminate a lot of jobs, and we move into a society where a lot of humans actually don't have to work. Let's just pretend it goes there. Are you worried like, oh my God, no, the work is our purpose, and then humans will have problem finding a purpose and all of that? Do you worry? Have you thought about that at all?
I think we would turn into another Renaissance, right? There would be massive amounts of human expression and art and music and just so many things that we would work has delayed us from developing different, more beautiful ways to experience humanity. If that gets taken away from us, I think that that aspect of humanity would explode.
I 100% agree, and I think it would be awesome, right?
Yes.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
that be an awesome world to live in where it's like, hey, my creativity is like, for example, one of my hobbies is playing around in my Jeep in the mountains and finding cool trails and finding the cool, like, okay, well, what's wrong with that? Like, I can go have fun doing that and I can
Yeah.
be creative and then maybe I can have a community around that or whatever. Yeah, when people tell me like, "Oh, yeah, but work, we got to have a purpose, and if you don't work, I'm not going to have a purpose." I'm like, that is such bullshit. Like your purpose can be hanging out
I
with your kids.
I
Your purpose,
typically don't ask people what they do for work. I say, tell me what you've been passionate about lately.
yeah,
If it's work, great. I'm passionate about my work, but a lot of people, that's not where they're passionate at. And if,
most people,
yeah, yeah. So,
most people,
yeah.
like their passion is bass fishing or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so I think it'd be wonderful if we get there.
Yeah. And I think
Well,
we'd much bigger gig economy for sure. We're getting there. We're getting there.
yeah, it's gonna be fascinating, fascinating times, Kaylan.
Yeah.
All right, one more time. So for people to find you,
Mhm.
you want me to just go Kaylan Barry, LinkedIn? Where do you want
Yeah.
to?
Kaylan Barry at LinkedIn. I mean, KBCO enterprises.com. We have an intake form and a
Okay,
scheduling link on there too.
okay,
But LinkedIn is the best way to get a hold of me. So
okay. All right, great. Thank you for being on the Riderflex show. Really appreciate it. Awesome job.
thank you for having me. It was really, I was nervous, but
Yeah, you did great.
okay.